Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you're watching on YouTube, you can find out more about what we do at officehours.global. First hour is general discussion about media and virtual production. And the second hour is usually something we want to spend a little bit more time on. Today, we're going to talk about the coffee challenge that we did long ago, and I think we're going to try to do it again. I've had a bunch of requests for it, so I think we're going to go ahead and talk about a little of what worked and what didn't work, and then discuss what we might do for one in the next couple of weeks. It's a great way. It's not really about coffee, or it can be tea too if you want tea but it's more about thinking about how to build a concise training video, and so we'll talk a little bit more about that in the second hour. All right. You want to find out more about our schedule, again, officehours.global. All right, let's jump into the questions. Mitch, what do we got?
Andre Dole is our first asker from Berlin. You didn't hear me the first time. Sorry about that. Andre Dole from Berlin asks, is there a preferably cost-effective way to bring Larix broadcaster into NDI? Or is there an SRT receiver app which I could bring into my ATEM via a computer? Won't use OBS if possible.
It's the cost-effective part that I don't know as much about. So with Larix, I believe has a receiver. So obviously when you're doing SRT, the way that a lot of times we've done SRT is to have a high vision Makito, and it just pumps out SDI from whatever you're doing there. A couple things to. I think that Larix can also, these are just a couple different options here. I believe that Larix can also go straight to I believe there's an Apple TV receiver app. So you could theoretically have an HDMI out of that. And so that might be also a possibility there. And then there is, I believe Larix has a desktop version of it that will receive those. But we'd have to check because I haven't used that before. So sorry, I don't have a better answer. All right, next question.
Mark Giuliani from Washington, D.C. asked the question, how does one handle a Zoom license needed for a production computer? 2FA is required for the cybersecurity insurance, but multiple people may need access to a specific account. Any suggestions?
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at my own account here, but what they say is you have to turn two-factor on inside the security settings inside Zoom. And then under the user management, you can turn 2FA on and off per user. And I use Google Authenticator on my phone. I never use texting for 2FA. And so they download the Google app and they should be able to set up, and that would give them a code for each individual guy.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
I guess one of the problem is it's not just Zoom. It's any time where you have a software set up to be used on a specific piece of equipment. So for instance, today I was going to turn on Zoom Rooms. It wants an email address. Our Google accounts are all set up with 2FA for the insurance coverage. And so the director this morning, the technical director, got a text at 7 o'clock in the morning because Mark wanted to get on.
Yeah, we have so many Gmail accounts.
Yeah.
So we have manager 1, manager 2, manager 3, manager 4, manager 5. These are Gmail accounts and that's how it is a pain to set them up. Like just, because they want a phone with each one and you can only have so many. And so years ago, we built these manager accounts, and we still have them because they're hard to make. But once you have them, those are our back end into everything. So if we want to log into Skype, if we want to log into whatever it is, we log in with those Gmails, and then that allows us to then be able to get the two-factor back to the emails that are there. So that'd be my recommendation. You can also, of course, if you have your own email server, that was just a free way for us to do that. Within your company, you can also, I guess if you have two-factor and it's inside the company emails, it could be a little more difficult. But the Gmail stuff is pretty easy, and that's what we've done in the past. And then we backed our passwords all up into. People can use a lot of different things. We use LastPassword. And the reason we use that is because we can give people access to a page without giving them the password. So we can literally say, this is in a shared document, and that person's going to get access to that, and it'll automatically fill in the password for someone, but we didn't actually give them the password. And the reason that that's important for us, for those listening, I'm sure Mark knows, is because people build passwords if you don't build a hash, people build passwords they have a pattern. They think they don't, but they do. And so you don't want anyone to ever see your password, even if you're going to change it. You never want to show if you make passwords in a certain way other than a random hash, you don't want anyone to ever see any of those passwords, because anybody who, that's the place that they'll look at it, they'll see a pattern of how you build passwords, and then that gives them a huge step forward to getting in. so you just, just seeing the password, even if they never use it, even if it's invalidated, is a bad idea. But everybody should use let's just go back to folks. Everybody should use either really long hashes or phrases that you remember from your childhood that no one would know. those are the like that you've never said to anyone, but you'd remember it and no one else would, kind of thing, or something. In those phrases are really important. They're easier to remember than the hash, obviously. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asked the question, I've been enjoying the game-like method Melodics, which is hooked with a link there, uses to teach music theory concepts like intervals. What methods would you recommend for practicing and internalizing those concepts?
Tell people you're going to do a concert in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I find that the most powerful training drug in the world is adrenaline. So having to perform, I used to get frustrated. It's hard to. I understand it now. Recitals and things. Recitals are a big piece of becoming good at it. And I used to think it's recitals to show what you knew and to impress people. And I realized it's to create pressure. It's just to create pressure to be somewhere at a certain time and you're going to be in front of a bunch of people, and it's going to look good or it's not. And it has a tendency to heighten the senses, is to have something in real time that has to be done. So my recommendation, if you're enjoying that, is to tell everyone you're going to perform somewhere. You can do it in after hours if you want, and then do the best you can. But it's just music is such a any skill, I guess, is what I would say is such a thing of practice. You just have to do it. You have to what we call move. I was just reading something about this. You have to move knowledge from your. I call it moving knowledge from your head to your fingers. So where your fingers just do the thing that they need to do. You're no longer thinking about the thing, and that just takes just incredible amount of rote practice. There's no way around it other than just hours of time. I wish you could do it like the Matrix, but it doesn't happen. Next question.
Joaquin Matus in Imperial Valley, California. It was opening day for the MLB last night, as well as the first Apple TV Plus MLB broadcast. Did anyone watch? Thoughts on the graphics package? I love the Apple-like minimalism.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, the graphics package was kind of mediocre. It was okay. The announcers were terrible. And I'm spoiled because I grew up in St. Louis, and in the summers, my grandfather had a cottage, and I had a pillow speaker, and I'd go to bed listening to St. Louis Cardinals games, and they had the holy trinity of broadcasters: Harry Carey, Jack Buck, and Joe Garagiola. And these announcers on that scale, the holy trinity scale, they were about a 30 out of 100, but maybe the graphics were okay. I didn't really pay attention to the graphics. I like the announcing. That's what I judge it by.
Every time I think of Harry Carey, I just think of Will Ferrell in Saturday Night Live. If you've ever seen, it's so good. I'm not going to even try to do it, but it's really funny. I thought the graphics were. I like the minimalism of the graphics. I thought that they had the information that you wanted. But they weren't overbearing. I thought that the announcing, as Paul said, was just boring. Like, I think that was the thing. It was just like, it didn't have there was no muchness in it at all. And so it was just kind of, it was like people who haven't done this very much trying to do it well. And I just didn't feel like they hit the mark very well. So I agree with Paul on that. Go ahead, Lois.
I was just wondering if someone could explain what they mean by Apple-like minimalism.
Apple has a tendency to, like, everything that they put up there means something. And if you can't figure out what it means, and if it's not important, they want to get rid of it. Like, they just, they don't want lots of extra things, lots of flashy things, lots of, Apple has a minimalistic approach to things, which is that if it, you really have to fight for everything that shows up on the screen. They really are like, do we really need that? Like it. And so I think that's the minimalism, is that they just tend to be very, very careful. Like there's a temptation to just throw the kitchen sink in. I mean, a lot of PC apps are like this. Like, we'll put another button in there. We'll put another drop down in there. We just keep on giving the user options and just keep throwing things in there until it just looks like they've just thrown text up on the screen. It just is an enormous, overwhelming thing. And what Apple really works on is minimalizing that and making sure that you're looking, you're having that experience, and only the things that are absolutely necessary at that moment are in front of you. And so I think that's kind of that's the approach that Apple has. And I think we saw that in the broadcast, which I thought was kind of nice. I think a lot of broadcasts can be way over the top, where there's just tons of information and it has to look really, really cool, and it has to flash and shake and do weird things. And this is definitely not that. Go ahead, Mitchell.
I'm hoping for catchphrases. Will Apple allow like a holy cow or whatever from Phil Rizzuto? That would be very interesting. I
have to admit that I would love, number one is I'd love to see them play with immersive audio. I think that they may use this as a lab. So this was like, last night was Hello World, like it's not this isn't where they plan to be. This is just where they had to start. But I think that, seeing 4K, high frame rate, 120 frame per second, these are all things that are really expensive to do, but with Apple money, you could definitely do it. And so increasing our frame rate, increasing the resolution, going HDR, doing immersive audio. These are all things that Apple can, because broadcast will never be able to do it at that level. Like broadcast doesn't have, they're not equipped to do anything at that level. So I think Apple could theoretically start pushing this outer edge of what it looks like. I think the first thing you do, is make it work, and then that's what they did yesterday. And of course it was clean. I also don't know why, if I was Apple and I paid all that money, at first at least, for those commercial breaks, I probably fill all the commercial breaks with my own products. like it was like, this is really good. And then it was like, it's an okay ad, and I just make really amazing ads for my own products and you don't need the ad breaks for other people. Apple doesn't, because it's selling products. Apple would probably make more money with their own ads than they will, because they have all these products, than they ever would selling ad time to advertisers. Go ahead, Nigel.
So I didn't see it, so I wasn't going to comment, but I was listening to the conversation about commentary. What strikes me in baseball, like cricket, interestingly enough, when the games are that long and there's a large amount of time where nothing much is going on, you are very dependent on the quality of commentary.
Yeah.
And that particularly if you're a baseball fan and a fan of a team, it's really hard to listen to other commentators than the ones you're used to commentating on the game. It's what's frustrating to me about postseason when you're a particular fan of a team like I am. And so I would encourage Apple to think about working with MLB to allow them, if they can get the licensing done, to at least switch some of the audio shows as an alternate audio track, the way they do on the MLB app.
I think that we talked about that a little bit earlier in the week when we were talking about the Apple TV thing, is that I think that I agree with you. There is a huge opportunity to have lots of customization. If you want to listen to your local announcers, if you want to listen to those things, and those things aren't that hard. For a lot of the stuff that's done virtually, you literally send a fiber feed to somebody at their house or at a location local, and they just call the show, and that audio is immediately added in, and the viewer never knows any better. It's not like you have to take all those commentators and put them at the stadium. So there's a lot that could be done there, to your point. And I think that that's a great place to innovate. Even having like a beginner one that explains what's happening, like if someone wants training wheels, like the training wheel stream, and then there's the data driven stream, which is that, so just beyond just local, having someone there's just tons of data and maybe even more heads up displays about what all this stuff looks like. And, and really just go into it. And some people, a lot of people won't like that, but some will. And with HLS, it could just be another drop down, like it's just another feed that I would like to see would be the one that has all the data on it. So hopefully we'll see Apple use this as an opportunity. Hopefully it's not just we have baseball too, but we can actually move the format, which is pretty tired in general, but I will say, to be fair to the announcers, who weren't very good last night, the cliff falls pretty fast. Like there are like, I would say, there's like any given time, there's like 3 to 5 announcers that you want to hear talk about a game, and then everybody else is okay. And it's an amazing testament to we all say that you can just hire someone else to do something, and you can't. Like you cannot just hire somebody else to do it, because if you could, everyone would have great announcers. But there's, in football, there's Chris Collinsworth and Tony Romo and Troy Aikman, and that's it. Like after that, there's no one I want to listen to, and I won't even watch the games unless it's Steelers. But I won't watch the games otherwise, because I don't. To Paul's point, I don't want to, and to Nigel's point, like these games are built around it. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, it all gets back to the Holy Trinity: Jack Buck,
Right.
Joe Garagiola.
But they're not here anymore.
but Joe Buck's here. He's
Oh, yeah, there you go.
like the best announcer today, and he's in that lineage. And Apple's got the resources. They need to go out and get some good announcers.
I will say that we did a test with it where we didn't call the game. You just got to watch the game, and then it was a second ear experience where we had an ex-player talking to a social media person about the game, basketball games. Basketball is a horrible one to do it with because there's too much going on. But it's a great thing to watch, but it's just there's nowhere to talk. Football and baseball, there's places to talk, and people, they're just answering questions coming in from the audience, and it was riveting. Like it was just so much fun to watch because people can get the announcement. They were basically listening to it in one ear and watching the TV, and it was really fun because you have all these questions, and the pro is telling you the way it actually was. Like this is what actually happens. This is what we actually go through, and we're not calling the game because that of course would be against the terms of service. But so we don't call the game. We just talk about the experience of being in the game and what you're thinking when you're in the red line and so on and so forth. Go ahead, Nigel.
If you want an example of some of that, then F1 does probably the best job, I think, of the multi-screen experience. And so today, Melbourne, time trials, tomorrow the Grand Prix, and I will watch it on replay, and I can watch the F1 commentary. I can listen to the Sky commentary if I want to. I can look at the camera in any particular car I want to look at. And I think that is an idea that I would start trying to learn from.
Yeah, absolutely. Mitchell?
I'm not trying to outthink Apple, but do you think that they did it in order to innovate in how games are covered? Are they trying to copy MLB? Is this an entertainment play or a technology play on Apple's part? Those questions come up to my head, and I haven't seen it yet, so I can't comment that way.
I'm hoping that they did it to innovate and to push the format forward on their platform, of course. I'm afraid that they might have just did it because, live sports is the last bastion of must-see TV. Everything else is, people watch it some of the time when they get around to it. And so the last thing that is really an appointment that you have from a content play is live sports. And that's why a lot of people, it's a very powerful medium for advertisers because people will go and they'll sit through the ads because it's live. They go, oh, okay, I can't skip forward because it's not happened. It hasn't happened yet. And so that's because I live in a world where I have to admit I turned off the Apple live stream of the baseball game when the first ads came up. The first ad was an Apple ad. I was like, oh, I'll watch that. And the second ad was, I don't know, Capital One or something like that. And I turned it off. I was like, I don't watch ads anymore. I'm not like life's too short to do that. So that's why I think that Apple should build incredible ads that are really great and have their own ads in there that are entertaining and amazing and for Apple users, kind of thing. Because that's the only people that are watching. Go ahead, Lois.
So I'm wondering, listening to all this chatter, the comment, it's too staid, old, it's out of date, versus we have to have a really good commentator. And I'm wondering if there is a place, how people would become a really good commentator, because that sounds like old style.
It starts in high school. And then you do it in college ball, and then if you're the way that you become a commentator in most sports is that you were a player. I mean, nowadays this changed. It used to be all just commentators, and I don't remember. I think John Madden was really the one that broke the ground of we're going to take a coach. What if we took a coach, then had him actually be one of the color commentator, on a show, and he just took he built the format, right? And so nowadays, You have an announcer. An announcer tends to be a professional announcer. They went to college for that, and those are there's always one of those that are they're calling the game. They're not giving you color on the game. They're just calling the game. They're telling you what's happening. They're building the conversation. And then you have the ex professional. So it's a player, it's a coach, it's someone, it's that type of thing that are telling you what's happening on the field. Those folks, from my understanding, go through oftentimes upwards to a year or more of training between when their last season was in the game and being ready for broadcast. And it's a push. And even then, they're not very good when they get started. I mean, there's a handful of them that come out of the gate well, but for other people that come up the ranks, and if you don't play the sport, you're at a huge disadvantage. You can't. I don't care what anyone says. You don't know what you're talking about if you haven't played. like you just like you're making it up. You can read all the books you want. You can do all the stuff, but theoretical knowledge is 1/100th the value of actual knowledge. And actual experience. And so the problem is that you're at a massive disadvantage if you haven't played the game that you're commenting on, because it's so different than what it looks like from the outside. Every game that's like that. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, and exactly what you just said. If you saw the finals of the women's college championship, they had a Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi sitting back, kick back in easy chairs, watching the game, and they had the right framing. They had the game in a pretty big frame, and then they had a smaller frame with Diana Taurasi, and they were totally savvy about every aspect of the game. They played in the Olympics. They played for the Connecticut team that always wins, and it was phenomenal. They pulled it off, and the NFL tried this and failed, but they succeeded in doing this.
The thing that I found fascinating is we found this angle. I know we're running long on this, but this is what happens when you don't ask a lot of questions at the beginning for the producers. Anyway, so now there's questions coming in. We'll move over to it in a second, but we scanned a basketball arena. Like we just had a scanner in there, and when you have a scan, you have a whole picture of everything in the arena. And I found up in the catwalk, I found this space. I was just looking at my computer. I was like wandering around this thing, and I looked down and I saw this almost perfectly overhead shot of the basketball court. And I told the team, I was like, so I want to put a camera up here so I can get an overhead. And they're like, oh, the Jumbotron will be in the way. And I was like, I don't think so. I think I can do it. And so we put it up there, and sure enough, the Jumbotron was right off the edge. And so we had this overhead shot that was nearly a straight over shot of the and we had the professional draw on it. Like he just drew like, this is the play that's happening right now. Like he could freeze it and stop it and draw, like do the John Madden thing, but over top. Basketball's hard to do that because all the cameras are much lower. You don't get that overhead shot. And so when he did that, like I went from I don't understand basketball at all to I completely get it, and it's an amazing game. but before that, it was like this is craziness. I don't understand anything that's happening here. And then when I saw it, it totally made sense. And so I think that there's lots of places to innovate and lots of places to give people more information and have them truly understand what they're looking at. But we just don't see it very often because everyone's in a format. Because the format is so important and makes so much money, no one wants to mess with it because they're afraid that they'll fail.
The other thing they did was Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, two of the greatest players of all time. And they had cameos from LeBron James, Bill Walton. They brought all these people in to comment.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, and you can do that with Zoom now. Next question.
Todd Weezer from Fort Walton Beach, Florida. I recently taught an online course using Big Blue Button. It allows the instructor to do polls and multiple choice true-false quizzes during the video lecture. It overlays results on the video. Any group experience with this or other tools?
Our tool can do that. So we do that now. We don't do it very often, but you can definitely. I mean, there's a variety of different polling tools. Slido does it. Mokana does it. There is, and we can basically drive those into web graphics or graphics to make that work. I don't know. I guess I say a lot of things do it. Mokana and Slido do it, other than Big Blue Button. Most platforms have some kind of polling feature built into them. I know like Facebook and everything else, but as far as a private platform, those are some of the ones that you can do there. I think that it is. I will say that my opinion of we have the polling feature and we use it occasionally. My opinion of polling is it tends, in my view, tends to be a little bit of a cheap thrill. Like it's like we, as a user, I find it a little, I don't want to, oftentimes don't want to do that as and I find it to be a little bit of distraction. I get that you want to know whether people are following along. And I think that for me, that's why we leverage questions so heavily, in what's happening. Now, you got to figure out how you're going to justify whether the person knows what you were talking about. But I find if they're interested, they'll learn. And if they have some output that they have to do, a lot of times what I try to do is create challenges like this coffee challenge. But when I do classes, I create challenges that generally the students are insufficient to achieve. So here's a challenge. I know that you don't know how to do that. I'm going to challenge you to do this in a week, and then I'll answer your questions while you go. But I need that output in a week. So you're going to have to give me an output or give me a bunch of questions about why, and during the show, and so, or during the week. And so that tends to be I tend to just throw people into the deep end and just tell them which arm they're not moving fast enough to survive. Go ahead, Lois.
So I'm thinking that a poll can be a couple of things. One is when it's used well, it can be information back to the presenter, to the teacher, whatever. If you have, though, a poll where you're showing the participants the results, it becomes more like survey said. Did I get that right? And so it's I think a two-edged sword to try and do a poll during a class.
I think the thing is that the nature of it, the main thing is that when I teach, as probably illustrated here, I don't believe in talking more than 10 or 15 minutes, like straight, almost ever. And that comes from data that we got. I've talked about this in the past. We did eye tracking tests a decade ago, and they were just brutal. Like it was when I first saw the tests, I didn't even know if I could keep on doing media production. Like it was so upsetting for me because we were building all these long events, and we found that if you talk for more than 5 to 6 minutes straight, we lost 75% of our viewers. Now I'm not talking about 75% left. 75% stopped paying attention. So they were now looking at something else and doing something else because we were tracking what they were doing. They were checking their email. They were looking at other things and everything else. And so you have that much time. And if you put a slide up, it's 60 to 90 seconds before someone will go do something else. Like it's just devastating, And so it changed everything about the way we built content, and then we became much more interactive. The dwell time goes up a lot when you answer questions. Questions are the big thing because it creates active links. Even if you don't ask the questions, you're listening in a different way when you can ask them. When you could, you listen to the content in a different way. Next question.
Paul Valhus from Austin, Texas. If you're covering a live event with a phone, how do you shoot native video and then send it to your YouTube live stream during recording with minimum delay?
Go ahead, Paul. You asked this before, but I think we weren't clear what you meant. Paul?
Yeah, sorry. This came out of I was trying to cover this CyberRodeo. So I was out there, and I have a phone, I have a gimbal, I'm all set up. But the video that I'm sending is not good because of the cellular.
Yep.
So I'm just trying to find a way to record in native video and then with as little lag as possible, send it to the stream. So I'm not answering my own question. I'm just trying to.
So you want to record it and then immediately download it and put it out. Right. That's the goal.
With as little lag as possible. So it's close to real time, but the video is as good as you can get out of an iPhone.
Right.
Which,
Yeah. So I think that what you generally want to do is use image capture or just plug it into Photos and pull it off. And so, but you want to make sure that you're using the lightning to USB connection to pull it off, not try to do it over, not let it sync. The slowest way to do it is let it sync to something, because then you're stuck with that bandwidth again. But you can plug it straight into the computer, and image capture, I think, should be on your, come with your Mac, and you can pull it off, and then or use photos, and it'll show up as a device when you plug it in. You say trust this, and then start pulling photos off. You can usually pull them pretty quickly. Obviously, there's a lean between quality and speed. So if you want quality, I might shoot 4K, 60 frames a second, HDR, whatever. I want to make it the highest quality that I can have possibly, and then do whatever I'm going to do with it later. If I want to do speed, I'm going to do 1080p 30. Because that's what most people are going to see it at, and I just want it to be as light as possible to get it off the phone quickly. So, and I've done both. It's just that you always feel sad later when you shoot something beautiful and you only shot it in 1080p 30. It's so when you shoot 4K 60, you're like, oh, this is really nice. So
you're out there in the field. All you have is an iPhone, a gimbal. That's it, and you're sending it to YouTube.
But I would say that well, number one is streaming and capturing are two different things. So
you want to capture and stream.
You got to decide which one you want to do. You're going to capture.
You can't do both. You can't do both.
I don't know of anything that streams and captures at the same time, because it's a CPU intensive operation. So I don't know if you can. There may be something out there that I don't know about. Usually I'm in a mode of I'm either streaming or I'm capturing for stream. And then you want to go in. And the big thing is that once you get it back, you want to clip it quickly and put it up. And those files are relatively, it depends on how long your shots are, but those files tend to be not that big. And so you tend to be able to turn them around pretty quickly. Oftentimes in minutes. The reality is that a lot of cameras, there's other cameras other than the phone that will make this easier. Like a GoPro, for instance, is, with an SD card, is going to be faster. Like it is, you're gonna be able to pull that data off of the card, and you're still going to get a 4K whatever out of it. And so the GoPros are oftentimes, there's a reason that people use them, so for that kind of thing. But with a lot of these things, a lot of it does have to mean that you have some station somewhere that you're going to download it from. It's not like by your camera. I don't know, like if you're only using your phone, but if you have a laptop, to upload it or to do something else with it, you just got to find somewhere where the laptop's connected to the internet. Go ahead, Lois.
I'm wondering, Paul, if the things that you're shooting come in little segments, and so there's a break between, so you can stop a file and start a new one, or whether you're having to do it continuously, because that would be quite a different challenge.
You're pretty much continuous. You could do it in bits and pieces, but at that event, you want to keep it rolling, and it's too bad there's this trade-off between, you have to choose between either streaming live or quality, and have it delayed. And I wish you could have both. There's wondering if there's a way to have the best of both worlds.
There's software being worked on related to that I can't talk about here. So there's people thinking about that problem. Next question.
Paul is back with a question. What are the best tech news sources? Tech news aggregators? Name at least 3.
Go ahead, Nigel.
So I'm going to approach this from a very cynical point of view that I used to run PR teams for technology companies. And when I see the word best, I have to put people through 3 filters. Do they understand the technology? Do they understand the users they're talking about? And do they understand the business model of the companies they're talking about? And invariably, I find very few, any sources that can do that. I will tell you that part of MacBreak Weekly sometimes is pretty good at that. There are some people better than others. I think Rennie Ritchie and obviously Alex seem to get the triumvirate of that. But I find it really hard, and I am really struggling. In the end, what I end up doing is I look at things like Engadget to try and get the news or the information. Then I start searching and reading and try and read through the lines. Plenty of people on YouTube are good, but I have to put those 3 filters on before I established if it's the best source.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, Wired is good. TechMeme is good. Alltop is something that Guy Kawasaki built that basically takes all the news sources, Wired and everything else, and then condenses it down so you can choose. And tech meme, Google News is okay. That's a good source also.
Here you go, John.
You answered your own question there, Paul. So what's interesting is we had Slashdot as the original source, and then it went to Dig, and now it's Reddit, right? So Reddit is an amazing place for information, and then I would say Twitter, and then news.com.
Yeah, the ones that I kind of tend to gravitate towards are like Anon Tech is one that I spend a lot of time looking at. Tech Meme is probably the one I look at the most, is from a tech perspective. Twitter, if I don't read the comments, Reddit. and then Wirecutter before it was New York Times. Next question.
Nigel DeSalle from Austin, Texas. In my current setup, I have limited screen real estate. When you use a teleprompter and Zoom, which window do you put in the prompter, and what do you have on the Mac monitor?
Go ahead, Mark.
Well, I'm using a PC, but the point's still the same. I have two monitors in front of me. One is the teleprompter itself, where I put the speaker, whoever's speaking, and then I have the grid down below, so I can see the audience's or the panel's different, visual, nonverbal communication. And so I tried it the other way around, and if somebody showed their screen, it was just too small to even see. So,
Go ahead, Mitchell.
I use mine like an Interatron. I simply have the second monitor, the 7-inch monitor, which is inside the prompter. You can see it right here. And if you pin that in Zoom, all the commentators and the speakers will automatically switch to it, and it goes back and forth. I don't have a lot of real estate, so that works well for me.
My biggest frustration, this is probably one of my biggest frustrations with Zoom related to a teleprompter and just in general with Zoom, is that you can't put the gallery in the second window that I know of. And so what I really want is the gallery in my teleprompter, but I need the controls on my home computer, and you can't do that. And I don't, it's definitely one of those ones like I don't understand. like I'm just like, why can't I just define the second monitor with a gallery? Anyway, sorry. It just, that's, so I don't actually use the teleprompter as much during shows because of that, because I need both of them there, and I kind of put mine is like right under my camera because it doesn't help me. I need to be constantly seeing the gallery. That's the problem as a host, and that becomes problematic. Go ahead, Mark.
So, well, I'm on a PC. Maybe it's different. I haven't tried it on a Mac, but I just drag the gallery right up into the...
I know you drag the gallery there, but isn't all your controls going with it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah.
The problem is I need the controls on my main computer, and then I need the gallery on the teleprompter.
Because they're way too small to see when they're on the prompt.
Yeah. God. Anyway, next question.
Tim Holm from San Lorenzo, California. When you gather your tech team together just prior to a show, what do you personally tend to tell them?
Go ahead, John.
Just prior to our show at the rocket shoot, Chris was the director, and Chris had everybody get in a circle, and I'm not going to give away his secret. It was a really good leadership speech that he did. You have to hit him up on next time he's on.
Go ahead, Lois. I can't hear you, Lois.
That button push didn't work. All right. Going from a huge show like John Preto did to a very, very small show like I did last Thursday, I came in and the tech crew was already working hard. And so I really didn't say anything to them until afterwards when there was all those thanks and praise and everything like that.
That's awesome. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I liked what John said. Gather up in a circle. Get your group, communicating together.
I have to admit, we rarely do anything because we're always in such a pattern already. Like, so we're all in our seats. I mean, we might have something at the very beginning of the day, but once we're in our seats, there's just I don't want to interrupt anybody, because we're all doing things and making things work. And we're hoping, if everything going well, that 20 minutes out, we're all just sitting there staring at our screens. And there's just kind of like we're all just kind of settling in. Maybe everyone's making sure that they got the little bits and pieces there and everything's working. And as a joke, there's an inside joke inside of our inside of some of my productions is that from the Armageddon where they're trying to take apart I use a lot of quotes from Armageddon because there's just lots of quotable things, but they're undoing the nuke that's sitting on the asteroid, and the guy's going, "Do a good job, do a good job." So sometimes you'll hear on our show right before the show, like a couple minutes before, you'll or sometimes seconds before, you'll just hear this, "Do a good job, do a good job." And so that's that's usually a little bit of fun for everybody there. But usually it's usually we're in there's a thing happening for 20 minutes before. And so you'll hear just lots of people checking in saying, "This is happening. This is going here. We've got the actors on, where they need to be. This is, and so there's not really a time to do that before the show. Next question.
Todd Weezer from Fort Walton Beach, Florida. Anyone know of a Thunderbolt mini DisplayPort USB-C video switcher? This came up when we asked about using two Macs with one Apple Studio display.
Go ahead, Mark.
So I think you might be able to use something like this pluggable device where it takes USB-C in and then it comes with a cable that can transfer that to HDMI. Otherwise, you could just use an ATEM that would, and connect a USB-C to HDMI cable to bring it in.
Yeah, I mean, I think that generally, in that world, you're really looking at KVM. So a KVM switcher. The problem is every time you change it, it's going to reset the. It's got to reset the communication. So there's always like a little bit of a gap when you move from one to the other. You can switch relatively quickly with a KVM, even if it's not in front of you, if you look for a KVM with an RS-232. So if you have a KVM with an RS-232, you can there's a variety of ways of interacting with it, but now you can automatically switch those things around and just by hitting buttons or even, tapping a display. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, Amazon Basics has one for $7.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't buy that one. I'm just saying. I'm just when I have a parachute, I'd like it to work. So anyway, so the I think that I think that there's a lot of good ones out there that are but the KVM, what you're looking for oftentimes to make it easy, it's just never going to be seamless. It's just not the way that protocol works, and so it's not going to be a seamless switch to. From one monitor, if that's what you're looking for. If you're just looking for a KVM, then KVM is KVM. And the only thing I'd recommend, I have one right in front of me right now that I have for. What's funny is I don't use it for the monitors. I only use it for the USB, so that all the monitors are all available to me in front of me all the time. But I need to cut. I don't like the stop start of the switch part. So that's the part that I don't like about KVMs. Next question.
Tim Home from San Lorenzo, California. Part of my role is to find and train volunteers for our weekly House of Worship times. Recommendations for a primer that covers basic 3-camera setup or procedures.
Oh, that's a good one. So Tim, what kind of what are you doing in that 3-camera setup?
Well, we have someone running audio. We have someone switching.
What do the 3 cameras capture?
One is a safety shot, and then we have 2 bodies, one on each camera, and they're on the Hollyland wireless, so they can roll around anywhere they need to. But basically, it's just like this is what we do in video. This is kind of the routing. This is the
right.
Just a very, very basic. Like if you could watch this will get you an idea of what we do. Yeah. I know it's very basic, but if there was something that a lot of these people just are not technical at all at first, but they're willing to do something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Go ahead, Paul.
There's a YouTube channel called Video Guys, and they've got specifically a video on how to do this. They also have all kinds of other videos on how to set things up. They even have one for baseball.
Yeah, I mean the thing that when I do it, so I get into. Oftentimes I'm working somewhere in the world, and when we first started doing stuff in or I used to, I don't really travel much anymore, but the I know that when we got to Africa, our students had not really shot live. I literally had 9 heads of state coming in the next day. I have students who are shooting the video, and they've never really shot video before. I mean, not shot live video before. They'd done some records for things, and so we spent 4 hours training them, and they got offers from the broadcasters there, when they were done. And all we told them was, I showed them what headroom meant, so that I said, this is where you want the head to be. You want the eyes to be in this top third. You want the head to be still underneath what we're shooting there. I showed them what nose room meant. So when I'm turned this way, I want more space on this side. When I say I want more nose room, I want more space on this side. I don't want you to center it because it'll feel like a horror film. If it's behind it, you're waiting for something to come out and get you. And they thought that was funny. Anyway, so so I want more nose room. I want watch your focus. Focus is a thing, and everybody has to turn peaking on. So turn your peaking on so that, and when their eyes look red, then they're in focus. And it's all you care about is their eyes. So just get their eyes in focus, get nose room, head room, and then just do exactly what I tell you to do. And the thing is, I was directing it. And so the main thing is, the other thing I told them is, until you got to know what camera number you're on, and until you hear another camera number, never move your camera. As soon as I call your number and I'm going to say ready camera 2, go 2. Until you hear go 3 or go 8 or whatever, do not move your camera. Other than following the person. If they're moving around. And this was a plenary. It's like 2,000 people in a room, so no one's going anywhere. Anyway, so so they did it, and it looked like a good show. it was a good show. It was, and it looked like a regular show that they had there. It's easy when people aren't moving. It's what makes a great camera operator is moving people. Like sports camera operators are a thing. Because that's so hard to do. But when everyone's standing up, it's relatively straightforward. But those are the things that we tell them: is it's nose room, head room. Keep everybody in focus and do what I tell you to do. And you'd be surprised at how well. I mean, if anyone sat, I don't know if anybody here was watching the concert that we did on, I don't remember what night anymore, Wednesday night. I think it was Wednesday night. And we had Marcia Kerrigan, who is, one of the best TDs in the world when it comes to concerts, and she's calling the show. 3 of the 4 camera operators had never operated a camera that I know of. They literally, one of them came over and said, I've never done this before. And I was like, well, get in. Now you have, just get in the, get in the car. I'll tell you what we're doing later. And so anyway, and they did a great job, and it looked good. There was lots of little bobbles because they've never used it. And these are not the right cameras, and they're not the right tripods. It was like but a great director will make up for like half of the camera operators' inexperience. And the key there is being able to tell people exactly what you want clearly and quickly, and just do it. And then the other thing is as a director, almost never tell anyone that they've done anything wrong while they're doing the shoot, while they're shooting. They get self-conscious, and then they fail. So you just keep, if they screw it up, you just go to the next camera. Just keep going to the next camera, and then the main thing is that when I'm working with new crews, I'll just say, okay, I need you to get that person. Go, 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 go. and they're like kind of rushing to get there. And now they're still in preview. So I'm just letting them get their thing. And I'm shooting, that wide shot that you have is really important, because you'll just go to the wide shot. You'll go back to the camera that you have and wait for that other camera to set itself up. And it'll take longer than you expect. The last thing I'll say about house of worship is I've worked with a lot of different house of worships, many, many different religions. Getting good equipment and pushing people actually improves the number of people that want to do it. People think that I should be easy on the crew because they're not very experienced, but what they really get out of it is that people love to be good at something. Like, they love to be good at things, and you being easy on them. Now, I'm not saying being mean, but being easy on people, you want to be kind of velvet hammer kind of thing, but they'll never get good, and then it's not rewarding, and then they don't come back. Then you have to find new volunteers, and so you want to keep on kind of tightening all those things, and a lot of it's just letting them know that you're paying attention. Like, we didn't get the headroom quite right, and and that's where, what we call RFI, postmortems and RFIs come in handy to make that work. Next question.
Tim McAlpine from Chilliwack, Canada, streaming to YouTube with a web presenter HD from an ATEM Constellation, and it adds red and saturation to the program feed compared to streaming through an ATEM Mini Pro. Do you know why are there any fixes?
It's an interesting problem. I have not seen that with the web presenter. When we have cameras that look like that, it's hard to do when you have a image going through, but we have cameras going through. I look at my final stream and I color correct to my final stream. This is what I want it to look like. And I look at it through usually my phone. So if I'm doing a stream, the iPhone 12 and 13 are generally the most accurate color I'm going to have on set. Like it's just, they are super accurate. Apple spent billions of dollars making sure that they're color accurate. And I just look at them and I decide if I like the colors or not. That's my number one thing is like, is the stream looking good? And then I make corrections upstream oftentimes to make sure that output looks right. Go ahead, John.
I've got the Web Presenter 4K. If Alex sends me one of his constellations, I'll test this out for you.
Very good. Very good. All right, next question.
Kenneth Jones from Seattle, Washington, trying to up my game on Zoom. Does the gang here have anything good to say about the little camera suspended in front of the center of a monitor to make eye contact easier? Minuscule 1080 cams.
I would rather have your eyes a little under than to use really small sensors, in my opinion. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I've got this BCC 950, and it's like on a pedestal with a ball thing on the top. It does basically the same thing.
Yeah, and again, I think it's sensor size. If you want to up your game, it's sensor size. So you can get some of the Sony. I think is it the Sony 5200 is a really good. Like you can buy them on eBay for like $300, and they have great short depth of field. But I would look at the sensor size. Like that, you can get pretty close if your window is just below that camera. And I would go for sensor size over it being in the middle of the screen. And the 5200 would be really big to put in the middle of your screen. Next question.
And it's from Douglas Carmichael. With Apple moving into live content production and distribution, could you see Apple building or buying live production tools and bringing them into the Pro app universe?
I don't think so. I think that they're as far as they want to go with Pro app. that's my guess. Like I think that they have the tools that they need for that. I'd be really surprised to see Apple. And Apple has been in the live production business for a long. I mean, they do keynotes for people. But I think that I'd be really surprised to see Apple build a lot of live tools themselves, or even buy them. It'd be a surprise. It might happen, but you have to remember that like that Apple, them getting into live, that is not them using some software. That's a broadcast truck. Like that's like maybe 2 or 3 that are stacked up. Those are like $20 million of production gear that is doing that. And that's not there's no software to do that. That's just a ton of hardware. Go ahead, Tim.
I feel like there might be a little bit of movement in that area because you can embed the live video into Keynote. Maybe there's some simple tools that, they'll maybe put even on Keynote on the iPhone or something like that. So where you can,
I think we get little things.
It's interesting about.
I just don't think that initiative and Apple doing live content are even in the same divisions. There's making some easy stuff, but what we're seeing on Apple TV is a couple orders of maybe 10 orders of magnitude, between what we're doing in Keynote and that execution. But I'd love to see. I think if Keynote can solve the virtual camera problem, which is that they don't have virtual cameras in or out, if they solve that problem, they would go a long way, to making Keynote more interesting from a production tool. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael, would a cleaning pen like the Promaster 5631, and there's a link there, be appropriate for cleaning dust off the front panel of equipment?
Go ahead, Paul.
I wouldn't use it. It's got some kind of chemical in it, and it's tiny. I'm looking at the link he sent, and I don't know. Chemicals and LCDs.
I don't think it has any chemicals. I think that's a microfiber. I think that's a little microfiber. It's like a little mic. It's a pen, but it's not. It's not, though. It's called a pen. It's got a brush on one side, and then it's got this little. I own one. I just don't have it right in front of me, so I know exactly what that is. And it's got this little like micro brush on the other side that you use to do lenses and stuff like that. So those are the two things that you have there. There's no chemicals involved in that use case. In fact, this one is very similar to it. Hold on, this is what do they call it? A Peeps. It's like this. I use this to do my glasses, and it has this like really fine surface on one side that just kind of microfiber cloth kind of thing, or but like fuzz that will clean it off. It would just take a long time. Like it won't damage your equipment, but it'll take a while. Go ahead, Mitchell.
I use a feather duster. It works getting most of the debris off the front panel, and so it doesn't build up on the screens. And I kind of avoid using the canned air because you just end up blowing dust into equipment, which is not a good thing.
if I'm not in my office, to your point, if I'm taking something out, I'm going to clean it. Canned air is not a bad thing. You just don't want the liquid to get on it. I oftentimes just have like a blower, which I don't have. I'm just going to try to, I think it's
a puffer.
It's a little too far away. A little puffer that I puff things. Here's the thing is that the order, if you're doing lenses, is to puff it first to try to get any larger pieces off, then brush it very carefully, and then use a cloth or the microfiber, because what you don't want to do is hit a piece of dust and then scratch your lens with it. That's when you're trying to do it. As far as equipment goes, I use this thing called Super Clean. Okay, this is the funniest thing. This is the funniest thing I've gotten in a long time. Oh, this one's still open. I've got to open a new one. Hold on.
It's like silly putty.
It's like silly putty. It's super gooey and gross, except that it picks everything up. So on my ATEM, when I want to clean it, I just push it all down. I turn the ATEM off and I just push it all down in there, and I pick it up and it's done. It just grabs all the dust off of it, in every little crevice and everything else. And I got it because I was cleaning my car. Because if you want to clean the in between the thing, everything in your car, you just push this stuff in. It just takes everything out, and then you throw it away and you're done. And it just pulls it all. It pulls everything out of every little cranny and everything else. And I was like, I wonder if I can use this on my ATEM, and it works great. So
works
so anyway,
great on your iPhone too.
Yeah. So I've never used it with the iPhone because it's flat. But anything that has lots of little crevices, this thing works amazingly well. Next question.
Tony Denson from Leeds, UK. Is there a cheap and cheerful technology for broadcasting the audio stream from a mixer, such as the Behringer X32, such that it can be listened to on a phone? I'm thinking of this as an alternative to a loop system in a church for people who are not.
I guess people who are maybe not there. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, I think that's what he meant. He meant not there. It can work. I mean, a lot of churches use the old POTS line, the plain old telephone service, to connect up remote listening devices. So why not?
If you're watching on Makana, you'll notice, especially on the phone, you'll notice a little thing. You can push the button and you should be able to hear us talking right now. A little further behind, that is using an IceCast server. Now you can use also SoundCloud, and what they'll do is they'll generate a embeddable link that you can use that will just play the audio out. So then it's just on a web page. We're working on an app that will let you just open it up and it'll just be an office hours listener. And we're gonna make that once we get that thing working, we're gonna show you all the code. So you'll be able to just take our code and make it it'll just be easy to just assuming that we get it done, we'll make it easy for you to just use it. It's not gonna be like proper open source, but it'll be code that you can use. So we're trying to make those listeners easier for people to use and more available. But that's what you need, and then it listens to an IceCast server or a link, and it'll just play it out. And the reason we're doing it in an app, right now we have it working on the page, is the page oftentimes will go silent when it goes into the background. We want an app that is set to play in the background so you can listen to office hours and then do whatever else you're doing with your phone. Next question.
Paul Vahus is back, Austin, Texas, USA. What events would be good follow-ons to the CyberRodeo?
I don't know. The next big event. I don't know what that is. Next cool event. We should keep our eye out for it. Covering events is a lot of fun. It's a great way to learn video production, and a way for us to get better at it is just to find ones that are interesting. So we'll have to keep our eye out for it. Next question.
And it's from Douglas Carmichael. Looks like a follow-up. When I use some water to clean dust off the bristles of my cleaning pen, the aforementioned Promaster 5631, the bristles still feel sticky from the water. What is the best way to completely dry the bristles?
Time is the way to do that. Just let it sit out for a while, and it actually is really hard to get it dry. So you have to wash it, dry it, tap it on a towel, and then let it just do its thing. Next question.
Next question from Dennis Champion Walker in Mansfield, UK. Lois, what was hosting your edition of Birding with Lois? How was it?
Go ahead, Lois.
Well, it was perfectly marvelous. It was so exciting. We had an imperfect show, of course, and that gives us something to strive for next time. But the show itself was a relief. We've been working on this project since December, and it has been taking a long time, but it was exciting. So ask me anything you want about the show, but as far as the tech goes, thank you all to everybody who did it.
What didn't work?
Do we really want to do this publicly?
Okay, we can do it. We don't have to do it. Just a lot of people can learn.
Well, okay.
There's nothing wrong. I mean,
the tags below that says who your name is?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it had me in Germany. Three of the 4 panelists were in someplace other than they really are.
Yeah, that's the way the system reads the last 2 characters. Yeah.
And I had I reached over to get my binoculars and I pulled them in and it took a little, and I ended up knocking the cord out of my microphone, and my helpful computer said, "Oh, well, they're not using that for, they can't listen to that anymore, so we'll put it through the speakers." And then when I plugged the thing back in, my helpful computer forgot to turn off the speakers, and so we had that little, we fixed that.
Next question.
It's from Julian Meinhold in Dortmund, Germany. Having to do an audio-only interview with very limited equipment and no chance to test it. What pitfalls do I have to look out for?
Lois.
So I do a radio show, and what I am doing is I use the Zoom meeting to record it, and then that gives me an audio file. And in Zoom, you can also get 2 audio files, one for each person. I like that because if the microphones aren't quite level, then I can adjust that later. The thing that I use whenever I do an interview these days is I use Audio Hijack. I have set up a little sequence on it so that there's a meter and my microphone goes into the meter and the Zoom goes into the meter. And that way I can get a rough idea that we're both at about the same level. So that's very useful.
I'm assuming that you're taking hardware somewhere for this interview, just from what it looks like. And so if that is the case, the 2 pitfalls are recording too low and too high. Those are the 2 big ones. So you really have to do some tests where you kind of talk back and forth and make sure it sounds okay. So you're not overmodulating, you're not so far into the noise floor that you can't recover it, especially with less expensive equipment. The other thing is just environment noise. So walk in and see, is there traffic noise, people noise, other things that are around you. Try to get rid of as much of that as you can. When you don't have enough time, try to find another room. The other thing is soft room. So when I walk into a room, almost like literally, if I'm going to do an audio, you'll hear me go like that. What I'm doing is I'm listening to the reverb. So how much is it bouncing off the walls? And I can very quickly just click like that and know exactly like how much trouble I'm in because I've done it for the last 30 years. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, environment is huge. That's what I was going to mention. But also, you say you can't practice, but you may be able to practice at least setting up your equipment and testing how close your microphones are to just a random person that you're testing with, and try to minimize the distance between whatever you're recording with. Maybe even one of those things where you take a little zoom and move it back and forth carefully, because that can make quite a difference, by minimizing your environment. But some of the worst podcasts you hear are when 2 people sit in a coffee shop across the table from something sitting in the middle. It's horrible, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Good, Mitchell.
Yeah. Also, in addition to all the good advice you just got, try to anticipate what might happen if you're near an air conditioning vent. Anticipate what it might sound like with the air conditioning running, near a device that may ring, or fax machine, or water coolers, anything that generates noise, but not necessarily right the moment you're listening for it. It may down the road. So think ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to go over a little over because we don't have a ton of questions in the coffee challenge, and we've got a couple more questions, so we'll finish them off. Next question.
Tim Holm from San Lorenzo, California. Our church uses something called Church Online Platform, which is pretty interesting, allowing you to embed your stream in a wrapper that has interaction. Are there any other skins that can give us other choices to explore, like a QA platform?
I mean, the only 2 that I really know of is Slido and Makana. So, and we are looking for, especially nonprofits, or to do testing with Makana. So if you're interested, just ping me offline and we'll see what we can do. We kind of want to see the use behavior and how people use it and whether it works. It's No promises on it, but if you're game to experiment with it, we're open to, again, nonprofits and a couple other folks. I mean, we're just looking for certain markets. So that's House of Worship is one of them. So you can feel free to ping me on that. Next question.
And it's from Chris Whitener in Lafayette, Indiana. Has anyone tried, and it's a link here, but it refers to Upload Cam App, whatever that is, and that's the question.
Did he say whatever that is in the question? See, that was inappropriate. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I took a look at it, actually installed it on my phone to test it out, and it only has 244 likes or whatever they call them on the App Store. So that's not a good sign, but it does push to Google Drive, Dropbox, OneDrive, Box, and WebDAV. I'm not sure what WebDAV is, but it might be worth a try. It just doesn't have very many users yet.
It could also be,
it's
could be
pretty
new.
A nascent app is what it is.
The advantage of using something that's new is oftentimes that you have more impact on what direction the app takes. So you don't want to necessarily be scared away, because if the app developer is responsive and they don't have a lot of users, then it's you. And so you get a lot of new features. I've gotten lots of new features by being early into an app development. Next question.
And a little program note: when you put your name in and you don't want me to mispronounce, it's best to put a pronunciation guide in there. So I'm gonna probably completely ruin this name. Steve Macheze from Metro West, Massachusetts. Is there a video compression app that allows you to set a target file size? I need to deliver an online service with a max file size restriction, and I don't want to compress more than needed to retain quality. Example, a 3 gigabyte file delivered at 2 gigabyte limit.
If you're set to constant bit rate instead of variable bit rate, you can move that dial around a little bit, and actually you can move the dial around a little bit and just see. It'll tell you if it's a constant bit rate. It will tell you what the size will be. It can try on a variable bit rate, but it's not going to be nearly as accurate. Go ahead, Mitchell.
And you just made a case for why I like constant bit rate. It's a little more predictable. Variable bit rate is not. So
the problem
slider.
The problem with constant bit rate is that you're using up bits that you don't need in areas that in some areas of the video, and then you don't have enough bits in other areas. And so the advantage of variable bit rate is that it's going to throw tons of data at the places where things are moving or cutting quickly, and not very much data when it's still. So constant bit rate is okay, but it can be a little stifling. But it is predictable. Next question. Many things that are predictable are stifling. All right, next question.
Tommy Shantz from St. Paul, Minnesota. Is the Blackmagic Design H.264 Pro recorder still a good thing to get for your toolbox, or is there a replacement that's better?
Wow, I haven't heard that name in a long time. I think that you probably think about the HyperDeck Mini. All the new HyperDecks, I believe, record to H.264 and potentially H.265. So I would take a look at those. I think those are going to be better solution. You're going to have a lot more creature comforts with the new lines, and they should. I believe they were all recorded H.264, and some I think they might do H.265. Next question.
Craig McFarlane, Boston, Mass. Is there a video routing equivalent to Loopback, or is that what the syphon approach does?
Oh man, that would be cool, wouldn't it? I think Siphon's as close as you get, but it would be really cool to have a video version of Loopback. That's probably something that those guys should think about. Next question.
Eduardo de Augustine from Panama. How to stream a private video to a group of people who pay for a ticket. Planning an unplugged concert for my cousin. She's a percussionist.
I'm just trying to think through. The best one that I know of, and I just don't know if there's an affordable way into it, is Vimeo. Vimeo has paywalls. They'll build paywalls into that process. So I think that they might be potentially your best bet. It depends on how secure you want it to be as well. I mean, you can always build a web page that takes you to a private web page that has the video embedded on it. Is it completely rock solid? Probably not. You just have to decide a level of effort that's necessary and how many people are going to try to break in. Go ahead, Lois.
Well, on our show, we're streaming to and then restoring it on YouTube. And you can set it so that it is unlisted and you get the link, and so that you can have people pay you and then you send them the link. So that would be one way to do it that would be fairly simple.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely one kind of a performance. I mean, there might be some shinier ways to do that. Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, Vimeo definitely would work. I know that you said that already, but just point of information, it's $75 a month if you pay by the year, or $135 if you do it 1 month.
And can you do that as can you charge? Does it have a charge platform within
it does.
that
It does.
membership?
It even has a webinar arm now for that tier.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's a really interesting. Yeah, that's a really interesting platform. You know, Vimeo has really owned that, like live streaming to a clear listed location for a while. And when they first started doing it, I thought they were nuts, but I was wrong. Go ahead, Mark.
Is this an opportunity for Zoom events or their beta on? I think it's called On Zoom.
On Zoom, potentially, yeah. I mean, on Zoom could be if you want to do it to Zoom. Yeah, and the Zoom audio quality has gotten a lot better. I don't know if it would necessarily not be good in Zoom. So we're going to test that next week. And now what we're going to do is take a little bit of a break. It is 8:51 now. We'll probably start up. I think I'm the host today. I think Emily's out. So we will start up at 9:05. So we'll take a break. We'll invite our educators in and start the conversation, and we will say goodbye to YouTube. Bye YouTube. We'll see you later.
No 80s theme songs, Alex?
Do 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 do.
Greatest American Hero.
No, that's 18.
Oh, 18.
18.
Do 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 do. I don't know how I know that whole song in my head, but there you go. There we go. So we're gonna cut that.
Everyone have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, Mark. See you later.